If you haven't checked the calendar, we're a little over a week away from the official visit season starting at USC, and they already have the #1 class in the country. Will they hang on to it? Let's find out.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, you know you can pick your platform and download this podcast, and it's always going to be free. You know what else? I'm always going to appreciate your support. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're bringing back a special guest, someone who knows everything about recruiting. His name is Brian Smith. He hangs out over there at Locked On, the Portal Show. Brian, welcome back. How's things going out there in Alabama?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Recruiting is in hyperdrive. I was just looking at the commitment list. It was slow, and then it just went boom in the last 24 hours. So we've officially reached the point now where everybody's just going to commit at will, and I won't be able to keep up. That's where we're at.
So everybody else now is recruiting is picking up. Meanwhile, USC has 27 commitments, and they kind of hit a little bit of a lull as we head into official visit season. Before we talk about USC's #1 class, where do you think they're going to end up? I mean, we'll talk about where they're at now, but where do you think they're going to end up?
Depends on the metric you want to use. I mean, if you want to just talk about On3 does it different than like what 24/7,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I look at it from a different perspective than either of those. The teams that matter, and USC is one of them. I'm not trying to pick on the schools that don't, but there are only about 20 schools that can win it.
Sure.
Traditionally, that's just the reality. Which ones of those improve their roster enough to get up into that contention to be a team again? Because like it goes in cycles. Like Auburn's been down some, and different teams. Like USC's been down a little bit, but they're not down in talent like they could have been in some other situations for other teams. There's been some others I won't throw under the bus too much, but they've squandered talent all over the place. Like at Florida, oh my God, it's insane. USC is on that cusp, and now they're getting a class that's really good. They could go from a team that didn't come close to making the playoff last year in a year or so being a top 3 seed.
Right.
So I look at it differently. There's no way it's not a top 3 class, I think, by the end of the year. And it'll just be kind of finite depending on how you want to look at it otherwise. But LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, there's some obvious names that'll be there. How many do they take? Everybody's going to do it a little different. This is the other thing. It's not 85 scholarships anymore, Mark. It's 105. Some schools are going to go up to 95. Some will go 9. So that changes it every year, how many you want to take. So that makes it really hard to project.
Well, USC's target number for high school recruits in this class, 2026, is 35. Like I said, they're already at 27. They should be at 29, but they had a couple of decommitments. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But are people looking at USC's class and going, where are they getting all these defensive players? Why is it happening at USC? Lincoln Riley's the head coach. He's not a defensive guy. Is it kind of taking people by surprise, or is this what everybody kind of anticipated?
It has. It has. I live in the South, and there's always a bunch of people here that are surprised by how USC comes in and gets some kids. They usually lose some too, but USC is a big brand. And because it's so far out west, I mean, you can't go any further. You'd be in the water. People in the rest of the country, especially east of the Rockies, they don't have any idea of the brand because it hasn't been dominant in the last 5 to 10 years. It's had good moments, but even with Caleb his sophomore year, they couldn't quite get over the top. Part of it, ironically, because of that defense. If they had a good defense that year with him, they'd have won it. But in my opinion, but at the same time, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close because, I mean, they were a sieve by the end of that season on defense. And even with his unbelievable brilliance, they couldn't win it. So part of it, I think, is Lincoln realizing this is different now. Yeah, everybody's got to score, but everybody's looking at it. Even Georgia, they're like, Georgia throws it around. There's no way anybody's telling me that Kirby Smart likes throwing the football. I'm not buying that, but he has to. So the key now is finding defensive players and keeping them away from your opposition because everybody can score. It's about that. And I think Lincoln realizes that you brought in Chad and other people too, Dre and all those different people. That's great. But I think it starts with Lincoln. We're not going to win unless our defense gets a lot better.
Absolutely. I mean, USC, they made such a jump, an improvement last year on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, if you're just looking at the bottom line, points given up per game, they gave up 24 points per game. And that was with a defensive roster that was razor thin. I mean, once they started losing players, Eric Gentry, Anthony Lucas down for the year, things kind of spiraled out of control. Bear Alexander quitting after game 3, those types of things. Now, with what they brought in during the offseason, Keyshawn Silver, Jamal Jarrett, you can see that they now have the depth. And if they get those core guys that are returning to stay healthy, who knows what they can do? Because when you take out all those pick sixes that USC threw on the offensive side of the ball, USC's defense actually gave up only 21 points per game last year. And if you were to tell me at the beginning of the year, Lincoln Riley has a defense that he can lean into, only give up 21 points per game, you're probably saying, Mark, they're going to the playoffs with at least 10 wins. They struggled to get to the bowl game. So it was really odd. And now you see them bringing in, the top guys from California, and they're still able to extend out there and say, you know what, Ohio, let me go get your best cornerback. Let me take your best running back on the offense. Why is that happening? USC's coming off a 7-6 season. It can't all be about NIL.
No, I think it's organization. There's a handful of schools that really do it well and have for a while. Georgia, Penn State, I would put it right there. Alabama before Saban left. They have their tentacles into every place in the country. Mm-hmm. Chad Bowden comes over, Dre and some of those other people in the back office. I think that's part of it. And I also think that they just really started to dive in as a staff and made more of a concerted effort. I mean, I know it sounds basic, but if you don't work at an elite level, you're not going to gain elite results. They did. I mean, they didn't just put effort into it. They got most of their class done before spring break.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it is odd that they were able to do it so quickly. And yeah, NIL is part of it, but they're getting kids from Dallas, Cleveland, Georgia, all over the place. And then they did the most important thing, as I've said every time I've come on this show, they did a nice job of corralling as many as possible in the state of California. If you do that, it's basically the same formula that this guy you may have heard of before, Pete Carroll, used. It worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it was that hard to reinvent it once you had the right people there. One of my favorite sayings of all time is from a book called Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and then get the right people in the right seats. They're more organized now. That's just the key to it. And now they go forward and they hammer it out. So the only question I have now, like you said at the beginning, will they finish with the number 1 class or close to it? It's just how organized they are, not overextending. You're in on the elite guys, you got to play for the big fish. And unfortunately, that means a lot of Russian roulette down the stretch with some elite kids. And there is no day after signing day. You know what I mean? That's it. If you're going to end up with number 1, you got to go roll the dice a little. Bobby Bowden used to do better than anybody with that. They'd get 5 guys on signing day. Pete Carroll would do that too. Sure. If you're going to get the elite class, you got to roll the dice a little bit.
Well, USC, they got that number 1 offensive tackle that they wanted. They got Kenye Pepe to commit, actually shut it down. And again, we'll talk about that in the next segment a little bit. But I've kind of noticed a little bit of a lull where, USC thought they were in the driver's seat for offensive lineman Sam Utu. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like USC's not even involved anymore. Malachi Lee, it looked like it was going to be a USC versus Michigan battle. I'm hearing now that all of a sudden Texas is way out in front. Did USC fill up too quickly for certain players to consider USC?
Well, that's something I was going to ask you about. I told a buddy of mine, I said, USC's doing great with skill guys, but when has USC not done great with skill guys? I said, I need to see it on the offensive line.
Right.
And they got a few guys, and then they got Kine, who I know well. And I'm like, okay, now they can start. You're not going to beat Notre Dame and Ohio State and those teams unless you got first-round draft picks in the trenches. That's it. And he is a flat-out first-round draft pick. If they can get one more guy on the offensive line that is like a top-end player, and I don't know who it would be because they're recruiting so nationally, if they can just get one more guy, then they can flip. Like, I think Kine will play next year as a freshman. I don't know if he'll start right away, but he's an NFL player and his pass pro is elite. So he's the rare guy that's going to start 2 years at IMG Academy at left tackle. That's almost always a senior going to a USC, Texas, that kind of program. He's an underclassman that we knew about that was going to be that guy, and he just kept getting bigger, stronger, faster, and more technically sound. But can you get somebody else? I don't even care if it's an interior guy or if it's a right tackle, another elite player, because the D-line is loaded. Wide receiver group is underrated.
Yeah.
The quarterback situation at USC, I don't even care if they get a great quarterback in this class. If they didn't, they recruit Lincoln Riley to figure out quarterback. I don't even worry about that with them. But everything else is just so balanced. It's just like the only thing left really for me is, do you get like another great offensive line? That's to me the biggest question. And I'm looking for like the needle in the haystack here, because you could be done right now and it would probably finish in the top 5. But if you add 1 or 2 more key guys, top 2, pretty much a lock.
Well, right now they've got 6 offensive linemen committed in the class, and it's pretty well balanced as far as offensive tackles versus interior linemen. Vlad Diakonov, the tackle from Folsom.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah. I think might be one of those underrated guys. And I think that plays such a huge role in how people look at the recruiting class. Well, he's just a 3-star, Brian.
I don't give a crap about what people rank kids unless I see them. And a lot of these guys that do the rankings, they're personal friends of mine. Like, we all hang out at the same events. We all know where we're going to see each other. We text each other and all this and that, but we disagree constantly on rankings. One of the key reasons is seeing kids live, especially linemen.
Right.
We're never going to see that kid because he's in Northern California. He lives by Sacramento. Like, I'm never going to see that kid. So that sucks, but he's running over kids in high school, which is what he should do. And he's a big piece of clay. That's the guy that, like the John Robinson era, they used to take kids like that. And redshirt sophomore, this kid's inserted into the lineup. And then he's really good. A year later, he's not even worried about coming back for his 50th. He's turning pro. You know, can they develop him? I assume so, but they found him. And I think that's kind of what they've done with this class.
You know what? You touched on a very, salient point there. Anybody thinking that, you just need to get 4 or 5 5-star guys across the board in every class? That doesn't happen. That's not real world stuff. You need to find a couple of those under the radar guys, those balls of clay that you can mold. USC's got, I think, 2 guys in this class right now. The first one he's not even ranked. His name is Chase Dinas. He's from San Diego. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. Mm-hmm. Comes from a really good family, athletes. His mom played, she's like one of the best softball players at UCLA back in the day. He's a big kid, 6'7", 300 pounds. I mean, you stand him back to back with Zach Hansen, he might be bigger than Zach Hansen. Zach's a big, big man. So yes, you don't need to have guys ready to play when they arrive. Have guys that you can develop, have them ready in year 2, possibly year 3. So you always have somebody bridging that gap for that next 5-star or whatever that's coming in. And I think that kind of gets overlooked a lot when we're talking about offensive linemen and how they are so key to every single class. You only need 1 or 2 great guys, a couple of guys that you think, you know what, they're good, and then a couple more developmental guys. And with the transfer portal, guys are processing themselves, or they're getting processed out anyway. So,
yeah, I think I just remember in the 80s and 90s, USC was almost always really good at offensive line.
Right.
And there were, a couple of times you're banged up or something, but from 85 on, I've watched college football religiously. And it's been, when they're good on offensive line, they're going to get skill kids.
Sure.
A dead rat can recruit skill kids to USC because you can recruit primarily Arizona, Nevada, and California and get 90% of what you want. You might go get a quarterback in Texas or whatever. But for the most part, it's just home. So the linemen, when they get those guys, it's look out for everybody else. Pete did a better job with that than anybody. He'd find maybe one JUCO kid to supplement this course before the portal or whatever, or a transfer kid. But overall, 95% of the kids he brought in from high school, they just slowly developed them and they kept them. I think that's the other question with this class. And this is something that I've talked about a little bit on my portal show, but I don't know how it'll work with Lincoln in this group. are they going to be able to sign these kids? How many will they keep? I forget which team it was. Somebody was talking about one of Miami's, like the first full class that Cristobal had. Half that class is already gone, like 13 to 27 kids. And I'm like, whoa. I don't care if you had a top 10 class.
They don't anymore.
That's what I mean. So the key is retention. And we can look at the last 2 years. Michigan paid a bunch of guys to stick around. They win the title. Ohio State obviously hates Michigan, did the exact same thing. That is the new policy. Penn State's doing it right now to try to get in that title hunt. I don't think they're quite on the same level as those two teams, but same concept. USC has to get kids that are sophomores and juniors that are good to want to pay them to stay. So there's a developmental process. And do you buy into, I want to be a Trojan instead of, I just want the biggest bag?
Right.
It's a very touchy subject, and I'm all for players earning their pay, but dude, it's USC. It's a good degree. It's a cool place to play. You're in Los Angeles. If you can't market yourself, then get the heck out of here. So I would think they'd be able to keep him, but he's had a lot of guys come in and out of the program.
Right.
I mean, there's no way around it. That is the biggest thing with this class after it's signed. How many want to stick around LA?
I think that's a perfect segue from this segment to the next one. We're going to talk about, I mentioned USC has 27 commitments. They should have 29. They've got a policy in place that once you commit, no more visits. I'm going to get your opinion on that in the next segment. You ever check your bank account, Brian, and you're saying, where did all my money go? Happens to me all the time. I mean, between dining out, buying plane tickets to travel, go to games, whatever, every time I look, the money's gone. But you know what? That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's like having your own personal CFO. It's going to give you full visibility, total control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. With this way, you can kind of track all of your accounts, watch your investments, as well as your spending habits. And you're not just managing your money, you're actually going to start building some wealth. And you're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Again, instead of juggling multiple apps to make this happen, yeah, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan some long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com, and you're going to get 50% off your first year. Should probably put that up. There you go. Again, use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. You see it there. Copy it down, get it done. Okay, when that happens, you press the ad and it doesn't show up for you. Anyways, so USC has the #1 class, 27 commits, target number 35. They could be as high as 29, but they actually lost their highest rated commit, Xavier Griffin, the linebacker / edge player from Georgia. But it didn't hurt USC's ranking. Right? Do you agree with the new policy that Chad Bowden has implemented? Xavier committed before it was put in place. But 27 other guys are saying, you know what? It's not bothering us. Why should it be okay for players to be able to take official visits after they commit? You like it? Not like it?
It's a really touchy subject, especially with him because he committed prior to Chad arriving in Los Angeles. I don't know what you do for him specifically, but let me put the backdrop for you. Xavier plays at Gainesville High School. I was recently there. If that's where they had the Elite 11 Georgia this year.
Right.
And it's maybe 45 minutes from this other place called Athens, Georgia. You know who's in Athens, Georgia?
I've heard of a team over there. It's where Georgia Tech plays, right?
Well, they should have won it there last year, but that's another story. But he was just outside Atlanta. That is as good a city from top to bottom for recruiting as there is in the country. Everybody recruits there. I said, as soon as he committed, there's no chance he's going to end up at USC. That area is just so SC or SEC centric. It's nothing against Xavier. It's nothing against SC. The culture is just completely different than LA. I knew they didn't have much of a chance. They've had like 6 kids from Georgia decommit over the last few years. That state, the kids are not going to go that far culturally and everything else. But then the whole visit thing, I think, probably did USC a favor because you get it over with now,
right?
Instead of November. You can, and Xavier's a great player. There is no doubt about it. He's a burner. He's a guy that off the edge is crazy. He gets a little bigger. He can maybe move into DN, but he can play one, whatever. You just want him on your football team. So I don't know where he's going to go, but like Georgia banging on your door, Ohio State, Clemson,
Alabama.
Michigan. Yeah, he's from Alabama originally, so that's the tie. Most people think he'll end up with a Crimson Tide, but that's low-hanging fruit. Oh, he's from Alabama. He'll go there. That's low-hanging fruit, whatever.
What's really interesting, and there's a little bit of subplot to this. He was committed, and he then, USC was kind of looking the other way when he was taking a bunch of unofficial visits, not telling anybody. He was just showing up and, doing stuff. USC was okay with that. But then he went in and got new NIL representation. And I think that's where USC kind of said, you know what? We've negotiated with you. We gave you a really, really good deal, and you were happy with that deal. I just think USC didn't want to go through the negotiation process again anymore, especially if they weren't going to get last look on the official visit. And they weren't able to come to that compromise for some reason, whatever happened. So USC and Cohen Brown, they also kind of separated the wide receiver from Waxahachie, Texas. Like you said, I don't think that affects USC. They immediately found Luke Weaver, a couple days later.
Good player. Different player. I like Luke, and he's a local kid, Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame, if I remember right, to high school. And he's 6'3", 205. He's that rare boundary receiver. There aren't a ton of them. Cohen Brown, I love, but they're just different guys. Yeah, look, it's not going to work out for every kid. I tell people all the time that are fans, of course, fan is short for what? Fanatic. That you're going to have at least 3 decommits pretty much in every recruiting class. I don't care if you're Minnesota, Southern Cal, or Texas Tech. That is today's age. All right. That's, it is what it is. Don't worry about that. Worry about the guys that end up at your institution.
That's what I keep telling people. I said, look, right now, even if you're against the policy, you think it's too stringent. USC is, with that policy in their recruiting class, they're 27-2. That's a great ratio. And if you're going for 35, and let's say you suffer a couple more, I'll take a 31-4 recruiting record every day, twice on Sunday, and I'm going to live with the results.
That's kind of how I look at it. For the most part, I don't have a problem with the policy, but with East Coast kids, especially Deep South, that's just not going to work.
Sure, absolutely. I get it. I understand it. Let me ask you this. Does Vance Spafford stick with Georgia, or does he end up a USC Trojan? I talked to him last week at the Tournament of Champions Passing League. Dude's good. Dude's really, really good.
Last summer at Under Armour's Future 50, they hold it at IMG Academy. I'm down at the end of the runway, low with my camera. I watched him run a 4.35 40. Electronic. And he's a great kid and all that. And I kept telling everybody, I said, this kid's elite. I'd seen him play before.
Right.
He did tore some people up in 7-on-7. But I don't know. The school that he really wanted was Ole Miss originally, which is kind of random. Yeah, I know but whatever. But he liked the Georgia visit.
Wrong. The Grove can be nice for tailgating.
No. I think he likes what Kiffin's offense does, which I get. But I don't know. He's an LA kid, but he just loves football. I think he would figure it out if he was at some Division II school. He'd still end up in the NFL. He's a guy that's going to end up there. Does USC want him? Are they really going after him? I haven't talked to Vance in a while, but I don't think he cares what anybody else thinks. He's going to do his own thing, do his own path. Every day he grinds. I'll be curious to see if he takes any visits in the fall or whatever he does, but he's going to have people banging on his door forever. He's incredibly talented.
He actually has a visit set up, an official visit set up for USC. I think it's June 11th, right around there, June 12th. He's by himself. USC wants him. You mentioned his speed. That dude runs routes like I've never seen before. I mean, he's Crazy Legs Hirsch from way back in the day.
Yeah, he is a guy, if you don't get your hands on him at the line of scrimmage, it's
bye-bye.
Yeah, it's pretty much. He's a lot like Zachariah Branch athletically in terms of off the line. So that puts it in perspective. I know USC fans probably don't like him very much, but it's the same principle athletically.
Right.
Just freaky guy. So, yeah, we'll see. But if he's visiting, as the saying goes, you got a shot.
Well, I know USC's trying to get him, and they're also trying to get Madden Williams, who's currently committed to Texas A&M.
Really good.
I think they have a better chance with Vance than with Madden. That's just my opinion. I'd love to have them both, but if you can only pick one, I'm taking the dude you line up in the slot and just making everybody look stupid. And Madden's a really, really good receiver for me to say, you're 1B, Vance is 1A. That's where we're at right now. Those are the choices USC has to make sometimes.
Well, you can't sign 20 receivers. You kind of let the chips fall where they may. First guy to commit is kind of how I would look at it. I know those are two different kinds, but they've got enough players. And again, I'm not worried about the wide receiver spot for the Trojans. They tend to get transfers that are good. They tend to get high school kids good. They'll get a JUCO kid if they need to. They'll be fine there. It's trenches that I worry about.
Before we transition to the third segment where we're going to have a little bit of a Friday rant, talk about something. Are you hearing any news about a possible reclassifier for the 2025 class for USC?
I have not. I have a feeling that you know something about that, though.
I'm telling you, start hitting up your friends, see what you can find out. I'm supposed to hear something by the end of this week. So if not today, maybe tomorrow. But yes, there is a top player from the state of California who is trying to dot the I's and cross the T's to reclassify into 2025. So,
okay. Well,
I'll tell you after we're done recording. I don't want to. We never put anybody's name out there until it's official. So that's how we do things.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, we got one more segment to go. It's Friday. It's my Friday rant. We're going to give Brian a chance to get in on this topic as well. All right, Brian, this is a hill I'm going to die on. You're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. There's a lot of conversation going on right now about USC Notre Dame, this being the final game of the series, unless they can figure out a new contract. USC's offered a 1-year extension. Their whole thing is, we want to see how the new playoff format is going to be structured. Is the big conference getting 4 automatic berths? And if so, we'll continue to schedule out-of-conference strong games. I am so opposed to the idea of USC and Notre Dame never playing again that I am literally carrying water, so to speak, for Notre Dame because they've offered a 12-year extension. USC wants it to happen, but they're thinking, well, what if we move the game to the beginning of the year? That way, USC doesn't have to play Michigan 1 week and then fly out to South Bend and play another physical game. I don't agree with it, but that's kind of where, some of the thought process is going with. I cannot tell you how upset I am about this, viscerally. Been talking about it all week. What are your thoughts on this? Why would USC even consider this, even if the playoffs were to stay exactly the way they are now?
I can't say the exact word I want to use for it, but they are. You fill in the blank on the back half of this word. This is chicken. You know what the word is.
Right.
It's pathetic. Like, you're freaking USC. I don't want to hear it. And it's ironic because that is an intersectional rivalry. They both have traveled forever and made it work. They both had pretty good success, I would say. Come on. Notre Dame, just to use them as the obvious answer here, they travel as much, if not more, than anybody. A couple of years ago, they played Army or Navy or somebody in New York, came home, and then went out to LA the next week. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So I'm not even talking the travel aspect of it. To me, the travel part of it is not the issue. This is all about the path of least resistance to get to the playoffs.
If you're USC, if you don't think that if you think you need an extra edge in USC, the wrong people are in charge. Period.
Well, Jen Cohen came out with a statement yesterday with the LA Times saying, no, this isn't Lincoln Riley. This is USC looking out for their own best interest. I go back to last year's Big Ten Media Day. Lincoln Riley floated the trial balloon. He was asked about, do you see these marquee out-of-conference games going forward? At first, the question was about LSU. And he's like, well, the way it's set up now, I don't know. As a competitor, you want these games to continue, yada, yada, yada. But then he continued on. But, if we can get some more automatic berths out of the conference, and sure, there's no reason why we shouldn't play this game. I'm trying to be a USC fan and look at it from their point of view and say, yeah, you know what? Notre Dame gets to set up their own schedule, blah, 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 blah. But then I look around. I'm starting to watch some trends. Everybody's leveling up with their out-of-conference schedule. USC's leveling down. They tried to get out of the game against LSU. They successfully got out of the series with Ole Miss. And now, depending on who you want to, which side of the coin you want to look at, it looks like USC's trying to get out of the Notre Dame series as well. I love what Notre Dame's athletic director said, we want to play this series until we die, paraphrasing. Jen Cohen came out and says, we just want to see what the future looks like. And they've offered the 1-year extension. I'm fine with the 1 year so everybody can dot the I's, cross their T's, make the compromise, whatever needs to be done. I just kind of get, the way I feel it, USC's trying to move away from it because they want to get into the playoffs. And for me, if you win every one of your conference games, you can go 0 and whatever out of conference. You're in. There's no reason to sacrifice this game of all games. USC fans will pay to go watch Georgia Southern and Missouri State in the beginning of September when it's 100,000 degrees outside in LA, because they know Notre Dame's down the line. What are you going to do if you remove Notre Dame? You're going to go Missouri State, Georgia Southern, maybe Sacramento State's available. You're USC. You don't play that type of out-of-conference schedule, especially when you start looking at Notre Dame taking on Alabama, Miami, all these other programs. You got Ohio State scheduling it up. I don't know where USC's coming from right now, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I don't get it.
It's almost like they're scheduling as if, I'll just take a shot at them because they've underachieved for so long. UCLA should be a way better football program than it has been. It hasn't been great really since Troy Aikman was there. But the bottom line is USC's running scared here. They're avoiding Notre Dame and other teams, Ole Miss. That's just not acceptable. I grew up on the Notre Dame USC rivalry. I grew up on games like UCLA and USC. I grew up on Michigan, Ohio State, Auburn, Alabama. That's why college football is the greatest sport on planet Earth. Taking a Wall Street, well, this is the safest path with our money. Stick it where the sun don't shine. That is terrible. And USC fans, I bet a lot of boosters have made calls saying, we're not going to do it. I guarantee you they're going to lose money from donations. I guarantee it.
Well, I actually threw out that ultimatum. If I'm one of those wealthy donors and boosters that's been funding NIL, getting the Jakeem Stewart to come to USC, paying those roster retention rates, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm paying to see those players play the best teams out there, not the Georgia Southerns, not the Missouri States. And I talked to quite a few former Trojan football players. I haven't found one yet that says, yeah, you know what? We should consider this. Sue or Craven said, I'm ready to riot in the streets. So again, I don't know where USC is coming from. Who's driving this force? Is it Jen Cohen? Is Lincoln Riley saying, you know what? I need to get this program into the playoffs, so make it easier for me. And he wouldn't use those words, but you understand where I'm coming from. I just don't get it. This is when people say, you have to get USC to work there. I don't think you have to get USC to understand the importance of this rivalry, not just to the two programs, to the game of college football. USC won 11 national championships, and not one of those came without beating Notre Dame that year. I mean, the history and tradition between these two programs, it's literally, it's almost like cutting the baby in half to prove, you're loyal. And I don't get it. I cannot wrap my head around this. So that's my Friday rant. I've been ranting all week.
Well, it's deserved. I hope that the powers that be, even if it takes a couple of year hiatus, that it comes back sooner than later. But my guess is this is going to be away for a good while because the people in place in LA, whoever they may be, just don't want it. They're the one that's stroking the pen. That's the end of it.
Well, like I said, would you be okay if all of a sudden this game was just played at the beginning of the year every year? Whether it's game 1, game 2, or it's game 3, as opposed to the end of the year when it's in LA?
I mean, it wouldn't be terrible, but it's kind of ironic that, you just hit the word. Here's the irony of the whole thing, Brian. There was a time where Notre Dame wanted to join the Big Ten Conference. Michigan, and I think there was another couple teams that said, no, we don't want you. That's how Notre Dame found USC, and that's how this rivalry started. Hilarious.
And full circle, USC's in the big conference, and everybody's saying, Notre Dame, you have to join a conference now. No, they don't. There's no reason.
They're not going to either, so it ain't going to matter.
Right. And if they were to join the big conference, now you're making life more challenging for USC to get to the playoffs. Because remember, you got to set the bar. You only have to be 4th best and you're in. You want to put another power program in there that's going to challenge that spot?
Yeah,
Makes no sense. It really doesn't.
Yeah. I don't know. I got a feeling USC is going to regret this decision. That's my
I have a feeling USC is going to relent because of all the outside pressure. Again, like the wealthy donors, the former players. You're already going to have an empty stadium for your first 2 out-of-conference games. I guarantee you, people will boycott if you drop this series. Guarantee it.
You're probably right. They should.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said that they should.
I agree. And I will be one of those people leading the charge. Anyways, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, talking recruiting. Do a little research. Let me know what you find out. And we're going to talk more, especially after official visit season, because we're going to see where USC's class stands at that point, who they got, who maybe they might have lost, and start looking ahead to the actual season, because it's coming up. It's getting here quicker than we thought. Once we're done with June, you're now into July, and that's when fall camps start, in July. Or at least in July. Brian, again, thanks so much. Tell everybody where they can find you when you're not over here at Locked on USC helping me out.
Absolutely. Locked on the portal, all the same places you can find Mark, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and every other place you get your podcast for free here on the Locked On Network. You can find the portal. We talk recruiting every day. I've got updates on who's committing, programs, got other guys I do crossovers with, Penn State, Miami, you name it. It's a lot of fun each and every day. I literally do a podcast pretty much every day. So have fun and do whatever you do, but make sure you check out the portal.
Outstanding. Brian, thanks again. I'll be back with another 5 episodes next week. You got a bonus episode this week. So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.